Hello, everybody, and welcome to Going You Now's Town Hall Live. I am Joe Compton. I will be your host for this evening, and essentially all I'm going to be doing is bringing in a group here of wonderful people and experts. We're going to be talking about mental health. It is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we've got a bunch of questions already, and we're going to take all of your questions out there as well. So if you're watching this live and joining us, please, this is your show. You guys are going to ask all the questions. I'm just going to relay them to the group. So I wanted to start tonight's show by introducing those of you who do not know. This is Hannah Kimura, or I should say it was Hannah Kimura. Hannah Kimura passed away earlier this week. She was a professional wrestler and a bigger than life personality. She was on a reality show I believe it was in Japan, if I'm not mistaken, maybe Korea, I'm not sure. It was called Terrace House, but it's kind of like Big Brother or something to that effect. But regardless, she was incredibly talented professional wrestler. She was well on her way. She was very young, and she was well on her way to becoming a star. She was the free agent that everybody coveted in the wrestling world. And I bring up Hannah Kimura tonight, not only to honor her and what she represents, but because I felt like this was a good way to, kind of broach into this topic and the subject matter, because Hannah Kimura took her own life. And she did so because of cyberbullying. She was constantly badgered because she was not fully Japanese. She was half Japanese, and a lot of the Japanese fans took a heavy offense to that. And so she was constantly cyberbullied online. Twitter, Instagram, you name it, she got it from all sides. And, you could talk about how an artist should develop a thick skin or have any kind of skin, or that, as artists, we have to expect that there's going to be criticisms. This goes far beyond that. And this should not happen to any person or anybody. And so in that respect, we do this show tonight in basically in her memory and honor of her, and to let everybody know that it's not okay, that we're a community. We're a community that needs to be together, that needs to be brought together, and we need to love one another. We're all in this together. And in that spirit, I welcome you to our show, and rest in peace, Hannah Kimura. Thank you for what you represented, and you're going to be sadly missed. I know a lot of people, you touched a lot of lives, and that's amazing. And that's what we hope to all do. And tonight we're going to talk a lot about our health as a community, as individuals, as artists. And to do so, the idea was brought forth by my friend here and big-time contributor to Going You Now, Miss Julia Allen, who writes under J.K. Allen. And Julia, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and and how this all came about? What made you think about doing this for us tonight?
Sure. So I'm Julia. Like Joe said, I write under J.K. Allen. So I write primarily young adult fiction, fantasy, urban fantasy. And I am also one of the Three Furies from Three Furies Press. So I was thinking, this is Mental Health Month, and I'm a big advocate for mental health awareness. I have a few conditions myself. I don't like to call them disorders or diseases because I feel that's a really negative word to place on people. But it's something that we don't talk about enough. It's something that even if you don't necessarily have a condition, we all struggle with mental health and, being positive in times like this. This is a difficult time for anyone to go through, and no one really has any precedence for how we're supposed to be feeling and behaving during these times. So I just wanted to have a town hall, which was just a great venue with Going to Now, to just talk about how everyone's doing, what we're struggling with, and just talk about tips and coping strategies that we can use to stay healthy during these times when it's so important. Oh, you're muted, Joe.
Wow, it's live, everybody. Sorry. But thank you so much for suggesting that we do this and bringing it to us. We really, really appreciate it. We're very honored to be a part of this and do this tonight. And in that spirit, I'll bring in our other guests, and we'll start here with Stacy Overby. Stacy, tell everybody about yourself and your unique background.
Hello, everyone. I am an author, and I work in mental health. I publish with Three Fairies Press. I write science fiction, fantasy, that kind of stuff right now. But as my day job, I work in mental health. I am a substance abuse counselor with a pretty extensive background in dual disorders. So looking at both mental health, substance abuse, how the two interact, things like that. I also have a master's in psychology, child and adolescent development. So it's mental health, substance abuse, that all of that stuff has really been a passion of mine for a long time. And I think it's important to have these conversations. So when Julia asked me to be on the show with her discussing this, it was a no-brainer. Because we don't talk about this enough. We don't talk about the realities of what we're living through right now. We keep seeing all the memes and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, wait a minute. No, we need to talk about stuff that's real. So yeah, that's why I'm here.
Awesome. Well, welcome. Thank you so much for doing this. I really do appreciate you being here and sharing your insight with us. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
Couldn't ask for better company, for sure. And along those lines, we'll bring in Diana Robertson, who comes at it from a different perspective, but one that's very, very important in my personal opinion. And so, Diana, tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what makes you uniquely qualified to talk about our subject matter tonight.
Yes, thank you. I'm Diana Robertson, also known as Lillian Oak, LF Oak. So that's going to be, I guess, my artistic angle here. But I no longer really write as much fiction as I do working in the metaphysical. I am a co-owner of lifegrove.org, which is a company where we invite anybody on whatever spiritual path you're on. And it doesn't even have to be spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual. Those are all the four bases that we touch on. And whatever phase, whatever point in your life you are on any of those paths, you can come to Life Grove and find someone or something, some way to help you grow more, help you increase your knowledge, help you find the path that it is that you want to walk on. I deal with clients, deal with makes it sound like, I'm just suffering through something, but no, I love what I do. I talk to people every day, hundreds of people a month. And a lot of my clients do have, some issues here and there, some conditions, mental health, frustrations that they carry. And I help them tackle it through a spiritual and metaphysical point of view, which is surprisingly very popular. And for half the world, seems like the other half of the world is very unaware of this. But it's another just very healthy, natural way to solve some of these inner issues that we carry through. That's where I'm coming from.
Okay. And listen, I, as an active member of the Grove community and Life Grove, and have participated in some of the classes and the things that are available out there, I encourage everybody to go check it out. But Diana is right when she says she has to deal with, because she has to deal with me from time to time. But yeah, absolutely. We have some great questions here, and the way the town hall works, everybody, is that we are going to take all of your questions and discuss whatever you want to discuss. You guys out there are leading the conversation. We already have quite a few questions to get started. So while we're going through those questions, I'll mix in the questions that come from the audience as well, and we'll make sure we go through all of them. But this gives everybody in the audience a chance to kind of hear some of the questions that have already been asked and maybe bounce off of that a little bit, play off of that, and get some questions of their own out there as well. So it's always great to have that starting point for us. And We're going to start right off the bat here with a question from Jason Lavelle. He asks, is it okay to not be a positive ball of is it okay to not be a positive ball of wonder light?
I love that question.
Yeah.
Love how that question's written. I have to say that for sure.
I totally feel where they are coming from, because especially in the beginning of this lockdown and stay home, stay safe, I totally was like, I understand this, but it was just such an anxiety-filled time for me. And everyone was like, oh, and use this time to take a class or learn a new language or do this and that, like turn it into something great and positive and wonderful. And I was like, I'm just coping, like trying to cope getting through the day, let alone like making myself a better person. I was just like struggling for the first 2 and 3 weeks just to find my new normal. And I feel like we are so hard on ourselves, and we're saying everyone else is coping with this way better than me. Everyone else is, taking strides and doing all these wonderful things. Everyone I talk to is going through the same thing. They're feeling the same way about everyone else while they're struggling. So you do not have to be okay. Like, this is totally the time to not be okay, if there ever was a time,
Absolutely. I mean, there's one of the other things I should have added earlier is that I also have a certificate in trauma studies specifically, because one of the connections I was finding in my work with people struggling with both mental health and substance use is that there's a lot of underlying trauma that's not very well recognized. So that was kind of what led me to do that. And one of the world's leading experts in trauma, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, has commented and has said, we have set up pretty much the entire world to have trauma issues around this. We've taken away, I mean, we've got so much insecurity, so many questions, so much that we just don't know, that it's setting, I mean, and this isn't saying everybody's going to have PTSD from it or anything like that, but we all are going to end up somehow scarred from this. It might not be big, it might not be small, but we're all affected by this somehow in some way. So absolutely, it is perfectly fine to be a wreck on the floor, and the best you can do is get up and feed yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Forget about getting dressed. That's a very normal reaction to this, to all of this, for sure.
Right.
There's
so much uncertainty.
Yeah, what I did notice is that a lot of us who are having some of the most intense or the more extreme negative reactions are the people who are typically seen as these, balls of wonder light in our day-to-day, whether at work or online. We're the ones who are really good at putting on that face, at being that positive, uplifting type of person. And in my opinion, it's especially these types of people who have the right to step back, to take a breather, and take this time to really just, be the hermit crab. Go back in your shell for a bit. Let yourself refill your cup. Because at this point, we're the types of people, we're pouring out constantly for other people. We're always providing something. And this is the time when, it would probably be healthiest for, these types of people, for us to come back within ourselves and refill our cup, so that we're not only going to be better able to take care of ourselves as we move on, but to continue offering what it is that we offer to others when things do come back to any sense of normal.
Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We cannot. That's one of the things. I'm a supervisor now, so I don't work as directly with clients anymore, with patients anymore, but I work a lot with my staff on how do we work with these patients? I've got a particularly difficult patient. What do I do? And I do a lot more of that kind of stuff now. And that's one of the basic things that I keep, especially my newer counselors, that I keep telling them, is that we have to have some of those stronger boundaries, because if we don't, we're not going to have enough energy for ourselves. How can we have that energy for somebody else if we don't have it for ourselves? And that is so critical. Absolutely.
And this goes along with the question that we had from the audience already. Mike Fieri asks, why is it the more free time I have on my hands, the less protective I tend to be?
I would say because you're probably overwhelmed by the new feelings of what's being handed to you. You don't even know what to do with it.
I would agree that's part of it. I think part of it also is that one of the things our brain does, with trauma, and again, like I said, I mean, we're living through it. I mean, we're literally living through it, is that if you make a fist, tuck your thumb in and make a fist like this serves as a really good basic model of your brain. Back part of your brain, back part of your wrist here is like your brain stem, right? That's your breathing, your heartbeat, your blood pressure, your digestion, all those things that our bodies do just because, right? Your thumb is all of these pieces, these structures in your brain that is responsible for, our emotions, our survival instinct type stuff. So it's not the automatic stuff, but it's those survival base instincts, so to speak. And your fingers here are kind of the last part of your brain to develop, and it's this part right behind your forehead. And that's the part of our brain that those pieces are the parts of our brain that really are responsible for like the ration and reason and logic and let's talk about this type stuff. And the thing is with all of this stuff going on, the other piece that starts to happen is this part of our brain, that emotional part of our brain, is taking over. Because this part of our brain is the last thing that anything gets to, the last part of our brain to develop. And this is where all of that, I should get this done, I should organize and do this, all of that kind of stuff happens here. But we're not getting past all of that emotional stuff. So I think that's, for a lot of people, I think that's another reason why, hey, I've got all this free time on my hands and yet I still can't get anything done. Because we're stuck in those emotions, whether we recognize them or not.
Well, it's like the hierarchy of needs where you have to be fed, you have to have shelter before you can move on to emotional needs. And then you have to meet that emotional level of maturity before you get to I'm a self-actualized, fully individualized person. Like you can't work on the little stuff when you've got like the big basic needs to be met. And I just keep seeing article after article talking about brain fog and depression and anxiety fog and how it affects your brain.
Yep.
And with all this uncertainty going along right now, it's like everyone is having this experience where they're like, I have all this time to like read a new novel or write a book. And I just feel like I can't even concentrate. Well, it's because, we're living with so much more anxiety.
Mm-hmm. And those are classic symptoms of trauma. That kind of fog, that almost paralysis.
Right.
Or I can't do anything. I can't get myself organized to do anything. That some of that's symptomatic of traumas.
Could it also be that because we're creatures of habit, that like we like to have creature comfort, we like to feel like something is normal, that we get in a routine and we establish a different routine, and that routine becomes our normal, and we then kind of lean on our habits because of that. Is that possible?
I mean, I think we definitely rely on routine more than we realize. Even the people that are like, oh, I can't plan anything and I'm so impulsive. Like, you have routines in your life. You still eat at certain times. You still get dressed and brush your teeth in a certain order. So I feel like that really threw me off, was even though I worked from home before, it was like, what is the normal now? Like, how do I operate? There was that tendency for me to be like Diana said, I'm overwhelmed, so I'm just going to watch Netflix. But you can only do that for so long before you're like, I'm just being a useless lump on the couch. Like, let me do something, right? So it was like establishing my new routine is part of what helped me to feel better about how to operate in this time.
Nice.
And I'm going to agree with what Mike Ferrier was saying in the comment you just brought up about how social media is essentially being thrust on them, being faced with all this, all these, they're like commands from people you don't even know. The whole world has thrown itself at you, And since we're all so used to staring at screens, it's like, oh, you look at your phone, there's one command. You look at your computer, it's the same exact thing. And you're just like, you don't know what to do. It comes back to being overwhelmed and being controlled, even though we won't admit it, being controlled by what it is that's on the screen.
Yes, and not only that, but it's the fact that you can't escape it. I mean, that's part of like to kind of bring it back to a little bit of what Joe was talking about at the beginning with the cyberbullying. That's part of why cyberbullying is so, on some levels, so much worse than in-person bullying, because not that it makes in-person bullying okay by any stretch of the imagination, but at least there it's like, okay, I can leave school, I can leave work, I can leave that setting, get away to somewhere where I feel safe and I feel okay. When you've got, social media, the cyberbullying, for example, that's constantly there, you can't escape it. We're safe.
You wake up to those comments. Yeah.
Exactly. Where are you safe? I mean, just, and just like all of the news about COVID or, the stuff that I live here in Minnesota, so I'm unfortunately living through the riots and stuff that are happening. My hospital is in downtown Minneapolis where this is happening, and you can't escape it, and it hits a point of, we've actually talked to clients about, turn the computer off, turn the news off, walk away from your phone, because that stuff absolutely is going to feed into that.
Right.
It's a little harder for you because it's right outside your window.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of a difference there because, it is quite literally, we were on lockdown yesterday because there was stuff that there was kind of some disturbance stuff happening down at one of our buildings. So, I mean, that's slight difference, but even there, it's, when I come home, I try to make sure that I really be careful. How much time am I spending on social media? How much time am I watching news? I actually don't even watch news at home anymore. Because it's like, okay, I watch it some at work because of all of the stuff going on, but it's like, nope, I can't. It's not that I don't care, it's that I can't. I just can't take any more in, and so it's learning to be comfortable recognizing those boundaries too.
Boundaries are super important, especially when it comes to social media. I have snoozed and unfollowed so many people that don't know. But it's like, it's those judgmental posts like, oh, you're so stupid for doing this, or you're so stupid for not doing that. And it's just so much negativity. And, it affects me to see all these people arguing when it's like, why are we judging what other people are doing driving alone in their car? Why are we, you know what I mean? If it doesn't harm you, why do we need to be judgmental about it? So I'm just like, unfollow, snooze you for 30 days. Like, I'll see you on the flip side of this, But I think that's important, and a great point that Diana brings up. Do you have any tips, Diana, for like kind of grounding yourself when you're feeling anxiety in the moment?
Go outside, again, away from the screens. And if you don't really have a very peaceful outside, if you don't have a peaceful outside, I don't even know if this will work for Stacy. Usually I'd say open your windows.
Right.
And
thankfully I do live far enough that I don't hear a lot of it.
And I mean, if there's like a specific band or some kind of music, that makes you feel good, put on some headphones and turn it up so you don't hear anything, around you. But generally what I suggest to people is go outside barefoot, and just dig your fingers, your toes into some dirt, into some grass, and just, if you don't have any of that, just sit down in your living room or your bedroom, look around you and pull out your five senses. So, stop and speak out loud. What do I hear? Okay, what do I feel? What can I touch right now? What is right here, so that you could bring yourself back into the moment, and out of that thinking that, is taking you down to chaos or panic or whatever it is. But yeah, just doing anything that you can that's going to bring you into the present is the main focus that you should be having if you're having any sort of anxiety attacks or anything that you might think would lead to anxiety attacks. And I will say, since we're all at home, there are a lot of us who, I guess it depends on how you approach this. I'm the type where if I can't ground myself because say there's too much noise or too many kids running around, I'll start cleaning. I'll turn on the vacuum. I'll do something just to pull myself away from whatever's going on and to be able to, get like a hum. I'll hum to myself if I need to. Turn on the water, do the dishes, and just stare at what I'm doing so that I'm not paying attention to what's around me and just what am I doing right now?
Right.
Yep.
Breathing techniques.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say breathing techniques also help. What gets me in a panic attack when I have them is my heart's pounding, and then I feel like I can't catch my breath. And that'll just make you spiral. So breathe in to the count of 4, hold it for 7, breathe out to the count of 8. That slows your heart rate down. So it lets your body calm down so that your mind and your feelings can catch up to that and slow down. So that's when you do your thinking of, I'm okay, I'm safe right now. And you can say, what am I doing right now? What do I feel? What do I hear? Yep. That helps me.
When I taught those, the best way I always taught those to the kids was, for as smart as we are, our brains are kind of dumb. Really, because I mean, that's how those panic attacks and those things, and that why the breathing helps is because your brain basically gets confused, right? Because the panic attack and the anxiety on an evolutionary level is supposed to be about safety, right? We get anxious, we don't like where we are. Our instinct is to try to get somewhere safe, right? So it really started as a way of keeping human beings safe. Unfortunately, our brains don't get the difference between I'm literally being chased by a saber-toothed tiger and it's going to eat me versus the stress from a pandemic. Our brains can't tell the difference. It's that same reaction. So the breathing really actually essentially just kind of confuses your brain for a minute because it's trying to panic, so it's getting your heart rate up, your muscles tense, you're ready to fight, you're ready to run, things like this. But then you're slowing your breathing down and it's going, wait a minute, I don't get what's going on. And it's exactly what happens then is it gives this part of your brain that chance to catch up and go, okay, no, I'm okay. I am safe right here. Works really well. The other trick I've used is with my 7-year-old, I read to him.
Right.
And that a lot of times, especially if it's been crazy at the hospital or something like that, just lay down, snuggle up, let's read.
All right. So we have more questions, and I'm going to butcher some names, and I really super apologize for that. Maybe Julia can help me with Hillary's last name, but I'm going to go with Seismoniac, Hillary Seismoniac. I hope I said that right, Hillary. I apologize if I did not. I'm really, really sorry.
She's a sweetheart. She'll forgive you.
She had 2 great questions here, and I'm actually gonna go. I'm gonna go because we've been talking a lot about ourselves. So I'm gonna do the first question first, actually. So, how do you handle friends treating you differently?
I think one of the things that I know I've talked with my staff about, and I try my best to remember myself, is that we're all stressed. We don't know what other people are dealing with. We don't know what's in their backgrounds. I mean, think about it. Have you told somebody absolutely everything about your life? I mean, I've been married for 19 years. There are things I've never told my husband. I mean, we've been together over 20. He just yelled from the other room, what? Because he can hear me. I mean, but that's a healthy thing, though. I mean, it's part of that healthy thing of we don't need to tell somebody literally everything. So I think sometimes part of it is just really that that breath of we're all stressed. We don't know what people are reacting to, what's in people's backgrounds, and just, okay, they're treating me differently. This could be absolutely nothing. When I'm in a comfortable, secure place, hey, what's up? I've noticed. Fill in the blank. Yes, exactly. What's up?
Mm-hmm.
But doing it in a place of, I want to understand. And that's why it's really important to be in a good place before you do that.
Mm-hmm.
To make sure it doesn't become something about, well, why are you doing this? Kind of more almost an attack. So that's
Right.
something that I've worked some with my staff on, and I try to work with myself on, of let's start it out of a place of curiosity, of a place of understanding. Help me understand what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
I just real quick. I don't want to upset the experts here, but I just want to interject real quickly something that I've really had to learn during this time period, and I think it's super important as artists as well as humans, and that is not even figuring out what it is that's going on with somebody, but just reaching out to say, hey, do you need somebody to listen to? And
Mm-hmm.
and just be the wall that they can yell at, or the pillow that they can scream in, or the tree, or whatever they need, whatever inanimate object they usually yell at or talk to get over things. And if I'm the only one that does that, okay, I'm crazy. But uh,
No,
but
that's great. That's beautiful.
but
Yeah.
no, I'm saying if I'm the only one that talks to inanimate objects, I'm crazy.
You're not.
Oh.
You're not.
But what I'm saying is, I think that's some important lesson that I really had to embrace early on in this process, and I still struggle with it because I like to talk and hear myself talk sometimes instead of listen, and so I'm very guilty of that. I don't have the patience because I can sometimes tell what somebody's going to say, and I jump in and tell them how to finish their own sentence, and that's a wrong thing to do. But it's something that I'm learning, and I think even so, if somebody you notice that somebody's having some offness, or they just say, hey, do you need somebody to listen to? And
Right.
that's all you can do at that point. I mean, you can't force somebody to tell you what's wrong either. So
Right. And on the other hand, do you need someone to listen? Do you need to be distracted, or do you need space? Because everyone deals with stress and depression differently. So some people need to disappear into their burrito blanket and, watch a movie and just unwind and unconnect from the rest of the world to find themselves again. And then other people need to talk about what's going on and work through their own thoughts. And that's why therapy is a thing, But everyone deals with things differently. So it's important to be like, what do you need from me right now? And then, just, even if all you can say is, I'm really sorry, but I support you. Whatever you're going through, whatever you need, I support you. And to realize that a lot of times, like Stacy was saying, everyone has issues, everyone has stress and anxiety. And a lot of times it's not even about you at all. It's something's going on in their life, or there's something that you don't know about that you remind them of, something that they wish they were like. And so they're taking it out on you, or you remind them of something they don't like about themselves. And so they're projecting that on you. There's so many reasons why people can be reacting negatively to you, and it might not be your fault. So like, don't internalize that always. Like,
Well, and sometimes I don't think people realize that they're even doing it.
Yeah, I think everybody right now is very disoriented. We're all basically, well, a lot of us are basically wearing drunk goggles right now. We're not fully aware of what we're pushing out, or what we're giving to others. But at the same time, this is also very much a time of the need for discernment. Don't let yourself be walked on. You have to know your boundaries and put them up and stand up for yourself when it's necessary, because unfortunately, this is also the time period when people are going to show their true colors. Not everybody. So, I always suggest, first, step away. If you're offended or frustrated by something, calm yourself down first. When you find yourself in a place of peace and calm enough to be able to discuss with that person, is there something you need to talk about? Is everything okay? What happened, or, what's going on? If they continue to push your boundaries and make you uncomfortable, unhappy, feel unsafe, you should be completely comfortable and confident to step away until everything blows over. And if you decide, okay, I really want this person in my life, they're really important to me, then you can try again. If they continue to push away, chances are they have been marked by whatever's going on. And you don't have to keep people in your life that are not going to treat you properly, that are not going to be a safe person and a healthy person around you. So just, we have to make sure that we're not giving or basically paving the way to be abused by people who are going to take, that opportunity to take control, to take that step and walk all over whoever's going to allow it.
Back to that boundaries discussion again.
Yep.
What
Some
she
people
said.
are lashing out. Yeah. So you have to be careful. If they're affecting your mental health, that's when you need to think about taking care of yourself for that moment.
And see, Hillary, this is why I asked your first question first and your second question, which you so brilliantly poised together, because Diana and Julia already have touched upon it a little bit here. And that's, how do you know when you are giving too much of yourself?
That is always a tough question to answer. Because it is so specific to the person. I know for me, I kind of habitually do that, just because of who I am. And I know for me, one of the, some of the things that I start to see is that, like my relationships, if I can spit it out correctly tonight, relationships with my family. If I start to see where I just don't have the energy to do some of that stuff, when I start to recognize in myself that I'm starting to snap about something, and I myself am kind of going, whoa, what am I doing? Is some of those signs for me of, hey, wait a minute here. I've got to figure something else out. This isn't working well.
Yeah, if you're drained and you're not looking forward to talking to these people anymore, it's too much. It's time to step away.
Yeah, you'll feel it. It's like feeling tired, but no amount of sleep helps. It's when you're, like Stacy said, you find yourself snapping when that's not what you're normally like, or you don't know why you're so in a bad mood and you can't get out of it. Like sometimes those are signs that you've given too much of yourself to one person or a group of people, and you just need to say, okay, I can't keep pouring from an empty cup. At some point, I've got to take care of myself. And then I can go back to, being the generous person I am and give more to people. But, for this moment, I need to take a step back.
And I'm going to say this, and I don't want this to sound selfish. This really is about good self-care when I say this way. One of the other questions you can ask is, what am I getting out of this? Because in a healthy relationship, there should be, when everything is all said and done, there should be a fairly even balance of give and take. Now, yes, there's going to be periods where, hey, I need a lot more support from my friends. I don't have it to give, right? But that should then be balanced with spots where maybe your friend is in that spot and you're the one going, hey, let me help support, right? But if you're finding yourself doing a whole lot more of the giving, and when you stop and think about it, there's that not much of the I'm not getting a whole lot in return, it's at least a good point to start questioning what's going on.
Right.
Because you should be getting something in return in that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. Jacob, you have some really great questions, and I'm going to ask them, I promise. Actually, Jacob and Emily have asked the question already. We've already answered, and so thank you for being on the same page with everybody. That's awesome. I love that. But I just want to acknowledge that Emily Fisher asked the same thing that Mike asked earlier, which is why is it so hard to be productive? And Jacob also asked, is it okay not to feel happy right now? Which, of course, Jason asked earlier. Thank you for both of you submitting those questions. Hopefully those answers that we gave earlier are going to answer those questions for you. If not, afterwards, and I want to encourage everybody to do this afterwards too. I know a lot of people aren't going to be here live to see this, and a lot of people will watch this after the fact. So if you do have questions after the fact, please put them into the chat or to the comment section, and I will make sure that everybody sees it that's here, and they can go back and answer your question for you. Okay, I don't want to speak for these ladies, but I'm sure all three of them are happy to do that for you if you have a question after the fact. So just to let anybody who's watching this now, who is not watching it live, know that then there certainly is that opportunity. Michael Medina Farley asked, along the lines of what we've been talking about right now, he says, guilt is powerful. Giving yourself permission to do things you want rather than maybe what you think you should be doing is something I struggle with a lot. So talk a little bit about the guilt factor within yourself. Diana, I would assume you have a really interesting take on that idea as well, but with kind of the spiritual aspect of things. And
it has everything to do with compassion. And you have to realize that you are worthy of compassion just as much as you would offer to anybody else. What is that quote? If you, oh gosh, now I can't remember what the quote is like, but basically how other people treat you. If you are treating yourself the way other people treat you, you would have gotten rid of the other people in your life. I can't remember how that quote goes anymore. Let's just go back to what I was first saying. Compassion. You have to recognize you are worthy of compassion. You are allowed compassion, and you have to give compassion to yourself just as much as you offer to other people. Typically, those of us who feel guilty or carry around guilt for things, for taking pleasure in things or for taking care of ourselves, that's because we're caretakers. We're giving all the time. You are just as worthy. And there's no reason why anybody should feel guilty to take care of themselves when it really comes down to doing what it is that makes you happy when you spend your entire life giving and giving. I mean, which part of that really makes sense? And if somebody else was coming to you with the questions that you're asking, what would you say to them?
Exactly. I totally agree with that. Like, if you wouldn't let someone you love say that, then don't say it to yourself. You know what I mean? If you wouldn't let someone say that to someone you love, you wouldn't let someone say to your best friend, like, you're a lazy, useless piece of poop, like, you would be like, no, you don't get to talk to my friend that way. I love them. So don't talk to yourself that way. It's really important, like she was saying, to give yourself grace. That we all need to rejuvenate ourselves and refill our cup. So if you need to do something that you enjoy, that's self-care too. Like, if you're, obviously everything with moderation, like, you don't want to lose your job because you're spending too much time doing what you love. But, you also don't want, all work, no play makes Jack a dull boy. So you don't want to go the other way either.
Jack's also very unhealthy in that scenario.
Yeah.
I just, as working in mental health, I have to say, I absolutely hate this concept of what should be. Should be compared to what? We're all individual people. So what works for me isn't going to work for you necessarily, or might not work in the same way. So this should be is like, you're the only one who should be deciding what should be. So it's a trap, I think, especially here in the US, we get caught up in, because we've got so much of society dictating to us, here's how things should work. You should be married at this age, and you should have, and you should do. And it's like, but no. That's putting everybody into one mold, and we're all boring and dull at that point.
Was this the quote you were looking for, Diane?
No, it was, I was thinking of it now. It's, if somebody else talks to you the way you talk to yourself, would you keep them in your life? And so if the answer to that is no, then you need to change your inner dialogue. You need to change the way you see yourself. And I mean, that's really, it just comes down to respecting yourself. You have to respect yourself. And if you don't respect yourself, that's not, I would say that's not your fault. It's something that was conditioned. It was something that you taught. I mean, it's something that you've carried your entire life, and now it's time to recognize it and take action to fix it and heal that.
Yep, I would totally agree, and I love that rule of thumb of would you let somebody else treat you this way?
Mm-hmm.
So Jacob has a question that kind of follows up on this topic, and then we're going to get into the artist perspective a little bit more. Thank you to Jacob for this. He says, "How not to fall to despair with your own body image."
I'm biting my tongue a little bit because that's another soapbox issue, especially having worked with teenagers for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to let you guys answer first so I don't go on a rant.
I'll say tips, because I have body dysmorphia, but there's a lot of different types of body dysmorphia. So I would say one thing that has really helped me is find images that you find beautiful of people who look like you, whether it's your body shape, whether it's, you have this trait or a scar, or, you don't look typically feminine or typically male, or whatever your, what you feel your issue is or your difference is. You can find models, you can find, I just look up, certain models and say, well, they're beautiful. Why am I so critical of myself? They look like me and I find them absolutely beautiful. And there's just this disconnect when it comes to thinking of myself this way. And another good thing is sticky notes in the mirror or on the back of your door of, I like this about myself. I like this about, even if it's something silly, like, I have pretty eyelashes, or, I look good with eyeliner, it doesn't matter what it is. If you're finding good things and allowing yourself to celebrate that, then that really helps. That helps me anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say whenever you're feeling particularly strong and confident is to stop and ask yourself, why do you have these negative thoughts about yourself? Is it because you truly feel that way? Or is it because somebody else made you feel that way? Is it because of an outside source that's putting this putting this weight on your shoulders? Or is it really coming from within? And then whenever you figure out the answer to that, really start focusing on more positive thoughts that bring you joy, basically, instead of attaching yourself to these thoughts that just bring you down into this despair. Start, exactly like Julia's saying, find a way to enforce these positive affirmations, these positive reminders about yourself. But I do think it's very important that you recognize whether it's coming really from within or if it's just because of something that you've been conditioned to believe.
Mm-hmm. An exercise we used to do with some of our kids sometimes kind of fits into this a little bit with this concept of scars, right? There's a lot of money spent every year trying to get rid of scars and get rid of those imperfections, right? And one of the exercises we would do with the kids, with the teenagers that I worked with, was, what's the story? What's the story behind that scar? So like, for example, when I had my kid, I had a C-section. I have a scar from that. That's not ugly to me. People might look, somebody else might look at it and go, oh God, that's awful. But to me, it's not, because that's the story behind my son's birth. That use that as a symbol of, and look at that story behind the scar, the birthmark, the whatever. I've met people who are, they're pretty overweight and they struggle with the insecurity about that. But why? There's a health condition that they've survived that has caused them to gain weight. Yes. But they've been a warrior and champion through this really serious health condition. Yep. They may not be the person they were before, but dude, you survived something that kills people. So what's the story? Look for the story behind it and think about that. And what does that story tell you?
Awesome. We got some really good comments here. Replace the negative with the positive, and Josh says we get to decide what thoughts we want to attach ourselves to and identify ourselves with, and we can choose which ones to reject. So,
yes, narrative therapy. I love narrative therapy.
Right.
We are
And
the
also
authors of our own lives.
Yeah, and also don't limit yourself. Don't say like I can never be beautiful because of this, or I can never because of, everyone has something beautiful about them, and we don't necessarily see it in ourselves, but other people look at you and say like, "Oh my God, you've got the best smile," and you just light up a room when you come in. Like there's so many things like we don't see about ourselves because we don't see ourselves laughing. We don't see ourselves when a puppy comes into the room. You don't see those best moments about yourself. So, don't have those limiting, I can never, or I can't be who I want to be thoughts,
Absolutely.
Yep.
all right. So I want to get into some of the artist stuff here, and Jacob.
Joe, can I say something right before you do that kind of segues?
Sure.
So
Please.
earlier, and I'm not sure who said it, but it's stuck with me through this whole show. Someone was talking about they feel they have to be strong for their son and kind of can't show the anxiety that they're feeling. I had a really great session with my therapist, and one of the things she said that was great for me was a project. And this is perfect for families. I know I don't have kids, but I have 2 tomato plants. I am notoriously horrible with tomato plants, but it gives me something to fuss over. When I'm feeling anxiety, I'll go check how's their water doing. Do they need more sun? Do they got enough this or that? I can Google articles on how to grow tomatoes. It gives me something to fuss over. But in the end, if they die, life's not over. So give yourself a project, like do one of those paint nights with your kids, like cheap acrylic paints. You can get them at Walmart, or, Kroger, or not Kroger, but like any like kind of supermarket store that has paints will have like cheap acrylic paints and a couple canvases. You can get in a bundle, little project, play with Play-Doh. That tactile sensation is really great for anxiety, molding and shaping stuff, being creative. Having those creative projects, crocheting is one thing I like to do. It gives my hand something to fret over, but I can still like relax and watch TV or talk with my family or talk on the phone. But find a project for right now.
Along those lines, during Christmas time when my nieces and nephews visit, one of the things we love to do to keep them away from their screens is pull out a 500 or 1,000 piece puzzle and put it out on the table and watch them go. They get so involved in it, and then you get involved with it, that it just becomes a thing. It works your brain and your hands and everything, your hand-eye coordination.
And you just can't walk away till it's done.
Yes, but it's great
and then
interaction too.
Did you have that last day or so where you're missing pieces and everybody's searching for the last 2 pieces under the sofa or whatever? But yeah, that's something that
puzzles are great.
All right, so segueing into that, Jacob Rundle asks, I feel like as a writer, how do I find time, strength, energy to write when I work?
This is one I have had a few times in the last many years where I was so overwhelmed by stress or something that was unhealthy in the house or something that was going on where I had the time, but I could not bring myself through the anxiety, through the fear, through the stress of what I was going through. And even though I knew that if I would get back into my book, if I would get back into writing, I would feel better. And I don't know if this is the answer anybody wants to hear, but a lot of times it really is just coming down to forcing yourself. And you have to tell yourself, this is going to do something for me. And that there's no amount of time management that you can do that can force somebody who's not in a happy mental or emotional place to sit down and write. Time management is not always going to do it. honestly, it really it really comes down to just forcing yourself, picking yourself. I mean, if you could have an extra pair of hands and pick yourself up and put yourself on a stool and say, sit and write, damn it, that's what it takes. And that's probably the only way I've ever gotten what I think it was 2 of my books that I didn't think I was ever going to finish. One of my books took me almost 8 years. I had it written out.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it took me 5 years to write my sequel. But
yeah, and it's like I had the book written. All I had to do was give it to an editor. And I just knew that was extra work to sit, and I wanted to do it. I knew I had the means. I had everything to do it. I just wasn't okay, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. I wasn't where I had to be. And I had to just be like, you know what, screw it. I'm going to do this because I said I'm going to do it.
Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I think it's also important to recognize that there are times where it's okay to say, you know what? It's been a rough day. It's been a long day. I'm exhausted. I just can't. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. I mean, to be honest, I have not written a whole lot since between COVID and now the riots and stuff happening in Minneapolis. I haven't written a whole lot because I've spent an awful lot of time at work. And, when I'm not there, I'm, trying to help support my 7-year-old who gets just enough of this to be scared and not enough to really understand. That there are times too where you just have to say, you know what? It's okay. It's just not going to happen today. And that's not a bad thing. That's not a shaming thing or anything of the sort. It's okay.
Right. I'm going to go off what both of them are saying and say, like, if it is something that makes you feel better, like I hate having written, but I love having written, like I hate writing, but I love having written is one of the quotes I love. But it's just like, if it's going to make you feel better, then it's self-care to sit down and be like, I'm going to write 500 words. Have a reasonable goal. Like, first of all, don't be like, I'm going to do 10,000 words and, my day off. Like, you have one day off a week, like you're not going to want to, or have maybe the mental capacity to bust out 10,000 words. Like, that's hard for people who don't work all day, every day. So, have an attainable goal. And that'll also give you that positive reinforcement when you meet that goal. You'll get those feel-good endorphins, like, yeah, I made it. And it'll be easier to do more. But I mean, if you want to say, I'm going to write 500 words tomorrow, and you write more, great. If you don't, you also have 500 more words than you did. But for me, a big thing I do is accountability. If I tell someone else, hey, I'm going to be writing at 8, then I'm going to write at 8 because I told them and they're going to ask me about it. Sometimes that's the only way I can get myself to do it. But like,
that worked for me.
Hold yourself accountable. Yeah. Make someone else hold you accountable,
Well, the other thing I'll add is also give yourself permission to write absolute garbage.
Yes.
There you go. Yes. I was going to say that. Thank you.
Put it in a folder that will never, password protect it so it'll never see the light of day or whatever it takes. But also just because you sit down and write doesn't going to mean you're going to sit down and write the next bestseller on the first draft.
Right.
Give yourself permission, especially when you're in a struggling spot, when you're just in a spot where I'm really trying to force myself to do it. Give yourself permission to write absolute garbage.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you have to write the garbage to get to the good stuff.
Jacob, I'm gonna relate to you here real quickly because I feel your pain, brother. I really do. I've committed to something that I never thought I would ever do in my lifetime. And it's because of Life Grove and the things I've experiencing lately, because I've tapped back into my spiritual self a lot. And so I've been dream journaling, and like literally because I have a dream every night that I'm remembering, I have to force myself to get up and write the damn thing down. And sometimes I'm so tired and I'm so exhausted, or I'm hungover, or I don't want to write. I don't want to cramp my hands or anything like that. And it's just because, it is what it is, right? But I committed to this. I'm doing it because I think it's important for my spiritual growth. And that's just me. That's a personal thing. That doesn't necessarily mean that everybody has to commit to doing something like this. But I'm just saying, like Julia said, she commits to the way she commits is having personal responsibility and making somebody aware of that responsibility and say so I can totally relate to what you're talking about and I also along the lines of what Stacy's saying, I have to give myself permission to sometimes not write it down. Hey, look, sometimes I'm gonna miss a dream or two writing it down. I'm just going to because God damn it, I want another hour of sleep, or or I am hungover and I can't really see the page. It looks like I'm writing three words instead of one. But so sometimes you just gotta let it go and not be so hard on yourself. I mean, that's the thing about us as artists. I think that is really amazing, and sometimes detrimental at the same token is that we put so much pressure on ourselves to be so great all the time. Like every word we say has to be gold and it has to be the bestseller or something that we want to put out there. I can't tell you how many words I've thrown away, but I guarantee you I've probably thrown away as equal amount of words as I've written and published in my life. In fact, I know I've thrown away more words than I've published. So, I mean, you just got to be accepting of that. And sometimes dribble comes out of you, just let it go, I mean, it also helps, and I'm shocked she hasn't said it yet in chat because I know she's there lurking and snickering. But I'm. It also helps when you have your editor be Rebecca Jones and she has a cattle prod and she. That also
gets you with the cattle prod. Yeah.
Yes. One of the other things that I have found, a trick I have found, sometimes that when you're really struggling to try to get some words out, is change up how you're writing. If you type on the computer most of the time, grab a notebook and a pen. If you write sitting at your desk, pick up that laptop, go sit outside on the deck, go take it to the park. That change can be enough sometimes to kind of jolt your brain into a little bit different spot, and then you can get the words out. So that's also something that sometimes, and again, it doesn't have to be long. You don't have to write for an hour. Write for 10 minutes. Because like Julia said, if you get 200 words, guess what? That's 200 more than you had before.
Yep.
Write for 10 minutes. It's okay.
I think I've jumped off my soapbox. Everybody okay? All right. This is a really powerful question, and this might be a deepening question but it has been asked, so I'm going to ask it. It's by Andy Mango, and he wants to know, how can one be spiritually beautiful? And I would say, Andy, you are, but
that's what I was going to say. So who said you're not? Who said you're not? And stop listening to them. If you're in a place of peace, if you're in a place where you feel comfortable and happy and like you're succeeding in something, then you are.
Yep. That's kind of the guiding advice we've tried to get patients to understand too is, from a mental health substance use perspective, be comfortable in your own skin. Mm-hmm. Get to a spot you're comfortable in your own skin. It doesn't mean you have to like every last little bit about yourself. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean you have to look at yourself and go, I'm perfect. Just get to a spot you're comfortable in your own skin. Mm-hmm. And you will be beautiful.
This reminds me of, I think it was Maya Angelou's quote where she says, they won't remember what you did. They won't remember what you said. They'll remember how you made them feel. And I kind of love that. The whole, I want to treat other people the way I wish I had been treated when I was down. Like in my worst spot, I want to be that friend that I wish I had that I didn't have then. And to me, that means like if I can be a good friend to other people, if I can make someone smile, if I can help someone through a difficult time, then I'm successful.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was actually talking with one of my counselors the other day, and we were talking about it going, we do a lot of work with our patients we don't always understand how much of an impact we have on them. Maybe not ever. But it's important to do the work anyways. You know, and just knowing that we can be that person and that somebody else can be that person for us. That's beautiful.
All right. So we had a very heavy question. I'm going to give us a nice little silly question, which I love this question. Thank you, Mike, for asking it. All things considered, what's the one thing that you think would dramatically improve your happiness and well-being during the current climate of the world? I know the answer to that question for me is to be able to go and sit down somewhere and be around people. That would be really nice for me right now, but I can't do that, unfortunately. So, but that would be what I would say. I don't care if nobody talks to me or anything. I can just sit there and watch people all day long. It would be nice. It'd be different.
Right, just being in a crowd.
Yeah. So the energy is palpable, you know. It's just there, and it's like, you know, being in the Starbucks and just on my laptop and just staring at the walls, or you know, being able to go up to the counter and say, hey, can I get a refill? You know, things like that, or you know, or having, you know, just having dinner with my wife in a restaurant, you know, something like that.
I miss restaurants. Dining in at a restaurant was like my escape.
Right, a concert, you know, just go with the music. Right. All of that would be really that to me is my answer. Sorry, I'll let you all answer as well. So.
I would have to go with watching my son be able to go back to school and go back to playing with his friends and that kind of stuff, because he is so social, and this has all been so hard on him because he can't give anybody. He's a hugger. He's a big time hugger, and he can't give anybody hugs. And that's just killing the poor kid. He can't give people hugs. My mom and my sister actually the other day found an ingenious solution that let him give his teacher a hug, because they'd walked up to school to drop some stuff off with his teacher. They took a blanket along and draped it over him like a ghost, so he could then go give his teacher a hug. And that totally made his day because he could go give his teacher a hug.
That's amazing.
Starting to think what's wrong with my kids. They're loving the whole just being home. I guess a couple of them, you know, just, you know, miss being able to just sit and gossip with the girls. But besides that, I think we're just kind of a family of, you know, introverts. And maybe it's because we're such a big family and there's always somebody to talk to or something. But the kids are honestly just kind of loving the idea that they're, you know, here and they're playing their games and they're doing whatever they're doing. And, you know, they're spending time in the backyard or, you know, whatever, board games, video games, everything. But to answer the question, once again, I'm starting to wonder what's wrong with me now. Because my answer would probably be to be able to fly out to Scotland and just sit on the cliff overlooking the water and just give me 6 hours.
You know what? You know what's so funny, Diana? I was just saying, if you couldn't think of one, because it sounded like you were kind of running around the question, I was going to suggest, well, now right now you can't fly, and I know that you're looking at your dream home out there right now, so that would be like going house hunting.
I spend so much time on Google Earth in Scotland right now. It's ridiculous. And then I stopped for a couple days and I was like, okay, I'm doing good. And today I walk in the room and Josh is doing it in Scotland. And he's like, oh, look at this house. And I'm like, oh my God. I need to go
sucked right back in,
in my computer and go back to Scotland.
Yes.
And I could sit for hours and just, you know, feel the wind, look over the water, listen to the sheep in the back, and that'll set me for the next 6 months, and I'll be happy.
Right.
I'll give 2 answers. One will be fun, one will be serious. But I would love like an unlimited gift card to the grocery store so that I can spend my money on what I want rather, you know what I mean? Everyone's like, oh, let me jump on Amazon and buy this new outfit. And I'm like, I gotta feed the family, you know? So if I didn't have to worry about groceries and I could just buy whatever food I want and then just like have fun with the rest of my income, like dream come true. But my more serious answer, and I don't mean to bring everyone down, but I know Lauren was talking about she has a lot of anxiety during this time, and I've kind of been controlling my anxiety by saying, like, I'm the one that goes out to the grocery store while my family stays home safe. But next week, Sissy goes back to work, and so I was like panicking, like, how am I going to deal with this? You know, I feel like I'm losing control. And like we said earlier, or like, you know, lots of people have told me, like, you never really had control. You just felt like you were holding on to this little ball of control. But, you know, in our lives, we've never had control. Crazy things can always happen, you know, so we have this illusion of control. But, you know, I've been trying to challenge my black and white thinking. And so my therapist said something really perfect. And it was, just because we're not 100% safe does not mean we're 100% at risk either. So, you know, I have in my journal, I have that quote on the top, and then I have affirmations to remind myself, you know, just having those rational thoughts written down to say in this moment, like, I'm panicking, I feel anxiety, I feel everything's out of control, but these are control that we have, and these are things that will help, you know, and that'll help ground you in that doing those grounding techniques, and then telling yourself that will be like, okay, I can get through this, you know? Yeah, so affirmations are, you know, my big thing right now.
Okay, that's awesome. All right, so Jacob Brundle is going to round us out here with the last questions that he has, and it's kind of heavy-handed and twofold, but it says, will the world ever be the same again? How will next time be different? And will we ever have a sense of security again?
I'm choosing to focus on how the world will change, but for the better. I know we were talking about this the other night, Joe, but, you know, everyone always said, oh, you can't work from home. It's impossible. No one can make it work. You won't be as productive. Well, we've proven that everyone can work from home. And even Twitter has been like, lifetime work at home if you want for their employees, which means people with disabilities should be able to get jobs easier. You know, there's a lot of benefits to saying, you know, we'll have a changed labor force, and they might be changes for the good. We don't know yet, but I'm hoping, you know, I'm looking at the positive of, yes, the world's going to be different, but there are going to be good things that come out of this as well.
Mm-hmm. And I would challenge a little bit of that back, going, was the world ever the same to begin with? Kind of going back to that illusion of control, right? I feel like I have control. I feel like the world's the same. But was the world really the same?
Mm.
You know, the world, I mean, it changes. I mean, the one constant thing in life is that life changes. Period. I mean, life is never the same. You know, we have a lot of change happening really fast, and that makes people uncomfortable. That triggers the anxiety, that triggers, you know, trauma stuff. It triggers a lot of those things for people. But that being said, I will also say, yes, I do think we will be at a spot where we will feel a sense of security. We will feel safe again. Because one of the things that human psyche does is find those places to be safe. And when we have as much of the world thrown off, worried, scared, this kind of stuff, I will guarantee you we are going to find a way to feel safe and secure again. It's a matter of when and how. You know, and
but all the world's working together about cures and vaccines. They isolated the gene faster than ever.
Yes, and actually just earlier, a couple hours ago, I don't remember exactly when it was, one of the vaccines has already cleared a key human trial benchmark.
Oh, nice.
You know, so it's not in production yet, but it's cleared a key benchmark for being able to come out. You know, so that's, this kind of stuff brings out the worst in people, but it also brings out the best in people. And that's why I think in the end, we will find a sense of security. The world isn't going to be the same, but we will find a new normal.
Yes, the world isn't the same as it was before the Great Depression, but we found a new normal. The world the same as it was before 9/11, but we found a new normal. When it comes to security, who's to say when we're secure outside of yourself? What keeps you from feeling safe and happy when everything opens back up? You're still going to be able to work towards your dreams, towards your long-term goals. It's not like, somebody's coming into our lives and they're, chaining us to a wall or something. Yeah, we're going to have some, maybe some new laws, maybe some, new little rules or expectations here and there, but we'll fall back to that mental space of, okay, this is normal, what we're going to consider normal, because everybody around us is going to be doing the same thing, but we're going to find a new flow. I'll never say it's going to be normal. It's going to be a new flow, because that's what it is. It's flowing. It's constant change. As it Pocahontas says, you never step into the same river twice, right? It's always constantly moving. And so when it really comes down to it, it's the sense of security and normal is going to happen in our own heads on a personal level as we move forward. And just remember that nobody's taking away your ability to, like I said, fulfill your dreams and to achieve the goals that you have had set in your mind for, since however old you were when you first started setting goals.
Can I just say I think something has changed during this time period, and it changed quickly early on, and it's my fear that it's going to get ignored and we're going to trample on it. And that's the idea that we have limited resources here, and that our earth is precious, and that we're the ones hammering it and destroying it. And it was very made apparent to me, if there was ever any doubters out there, the proof is in the pudding, because the channels in Italy have never been cleaner. They look pristine. I mean, the water there looks like if you took a close-up picture of the water, you would swear that was like Belize or Jamaica or somewhere in other in the world, not Italy's channels, because it looks pristine. It's beautifully blue. The Hollywood sign has never been clearer from distances that you couldn't even see the H from. The smog. People are breathing better. I think we need to take heed and step back a little bit and realize that maybe the normal kind of sucked, and we were kind of screwing things up, and maybe the new normal, we can incorporate some of those things and make some of those things part of who we are, and appreciate the beautiful, the beautifulness that we've been given an opportunity to experience and live through. I just think that I think it's sad that I have a feeling that it's gonna go. That's the thing that's gonna go most unnoticed and not change, and maybe even get worse as time goes on. I would, you look at places like China that had the most pollution, and during this time when they shut down, the people came back, and it was like, wow, I can walk the streets of I can walk the streets of Shanghai and breathe. I can see myself 5 feet in front of the other person. And that's my soapbox. Sorry, everybody.
No, it was interesting, because that reminded me, and I was looking to see if I could try to find the quote, because I can't remember exactly what it is. But Brene Brown, a pretty big mental health therapist, talked about it, and talked about normal not working. What was normal before wasn't working. So right now we have an opportunity to create a new normal that works much better than what we had before. I can't find the quote at the moment, but she talked about, and it was a really cool idea of this idea that it's not going back to normal. We need to establish a new normal that works better.
Right.
And to answer JD's question here, can you remember a time, because we were talking about times that we remember? Yes, in fact, JD, I'm so old, I can remember a time that when I was in high school and middle school, to get the attention of a girl, I didn't text her. I wrote a little note and folded it up in a neat little fold.
Yeah, we used to
Yes,
fold
the
them
little
like
football
triangles,
shaped
and
things.
I made a
And
fold
then
an arrow.
slipped it under a textbook, or while the teacher wasn't looking. That's how old I am. So yes, I can remember those things.
Absolutely, I can. Yep. In fact, I remember life without the internet.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, where the internet, well, I shouldn't say truly without the internet. When the internet was literally for just some corporate stuff only, your average citizen did not have the internet. I remember that.
I remember the first time we got computers in school.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this has been an awesome conversation, ladies. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I really appreciate
Absolutely.
it. Thank you to everybody who had great questions for us. I mean, this show wouldn't be anything without the questions, so we really, really appreciate it. We try to do these as much as we can, and just the time gets away from us and things get happening, and we're doing so much at Going now. It's kind of hard to do these all the time, but I feel like I should do more of these from time to time, and I really appreciate Diana and Stacy and Julia taking the time to be here and doing that, and staying a little bit longer than we even expected, just to get through all the questions. So thank you so much. I want everybody to know where they can find you, and tell everybody where they can get in touch with you if they have more questions, or if they want to talk to you in person and personally talk to you and thank you for what you did here tonight. So I'm going to ask, we'll go back the other way, and Diana, you can start us off.
All right. I could be found on pretty much any social media under Life Grove Oracle, all one word, and or on grovesocial.org, which is Life Grove's new social media platform, sort of like Facebook, but without all the BS.
It's awesome. Everybody should be on
it. It is.
All right, Stacy.
You can find me at thisisnothitchhikersguide.com. All the rest of my social media contacts are there. Please feel free. I am willing to chat about this stuff at any point in time. So questions, things you want to know, hit me up.
Thank you very much, Stacy. Julia?
So my social media handle is hijinkswriter. My website is hijinkswriter.com. But you can find me on Facebook Messenger very easily. So, you don't always get that instant notification if you're not friends with me. But when I see your message, I will definitely respond. Just let me know what questions you have for sure.
Well, I have to agree with the audience. Great talk. Love the show. It's cool. Check it out. Yeah, Life Grove is awesome, and the Grove is especially awesome. And yes, Stacy's soft. Yeah.
I gotta find a little entertainment somewhere.
And just remember, everybody, let's be kind to one another. Let's remember that we all come from different backgrounds and different things that may not affect me will affect you, and vice versa. And so let's listen and be compassionate and show everybody that we're a community and that we're here for each other and together. And I really think that is the most important thing. Other than that, it's always time to go indie now. And remember that. And with that, we say goodnight. And we'll be back here live on Monday, Sunday for everybody who wants to know. Sunday, our flagship show goes up. That's our big show that at the end of the month that we do. That goes up on Sunday. And then on Monday night, Julia's back with her show. In progress, we have the awesome Emily Fisher joining us, first-time author. So you get to learn all about and come in. I know a lot of you are multi-genre, multi-time authors, but come back and revisit your first time. Give her some love and let her know.
And she's an absolute sweetheart.
She is absolutely, yeah. So give her some love and let her know that it's going to be all right. She's going to be just fine. And just as all of you will be as well. So thank you so much, everybody, and have a good night. And thank you for joining us. We'll see you soon.